Yay for screaming kids.
Yay.
And
welcome.
Yay for you.
Welcome
yay for Bubbles. Hi.
Yay to Saturday night.
Yay.
Wow,
welcome.
I really don't like this haircut. It's too short.
Well, before we get into that, hello, everyone. Hi, all of you out there. Welcome to All the Things. I am Monique Duson.
And this is the show where we discuss all the things related to God and the Bible.
You know, if you know us, you know we're a little weird anyway. But if this is your first time watching, I'll just tell you now, we're a little weird. This is Krista Bontrager.
Oh, yes. I did not introduce myself.
Also known as Theology Mom. We're just going to keep it pushing, people.
Yes.
And welcome to All the Things. This is the show where we discuss all the things related to God, life, and the Bible from a historically Christian standpoint. So we're not looking at it, you know, from an agnostic viewpoint or things like that.
We're trying not to be postmodern.
Yeah. Nope. We are going to look at it from a historic standpoint.
Yes.
Everything related to culture and all of that. We are live on Facebook, streaming live, and we are also on YouTube. So, I mean, yes, YouTube and Facebook. Thank you.
And you can join us in the chat box there. Put comments on Facebook. We'll check those periodically, and also on YouTube.
Yes, this is what happens when we are horsing around like up to the 59th second before we start the show. Right. We are just kind of all over the place.
And we also want to introduce our crew. It's definitely a family affair here at All the Things.
Yes.
Working behind the scenes, pressing all the buttons is Mr. Wonderful, Bob Bontrager.
Hey, there we are.
And there's Emily and the microphone.
Oh, there she is.
There you go. There's that.
Yes. She's our sound engineer tonight, and Abby is getting some pictures behind the scenes, and she'll be jumping onto the chat box later to help me monitor the comments. So last week, we talked to our friend Elizabeth Urbanovitz.
Yes.
That was a great conversation.
It was all about teaching children the historically Christian worldview.
Yeah.
And why it's important, and the fact that they can learn a worldview at such a young age. And it's so important because we want to give them a very grounded foundation so that when they hit 15, 16 and they are bombarded with other worldviews, they know where they stand.
And I had a little rant about the Enneagram with mixed results.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Monique's not a fan.
Not a fan.
I don't think Emily's a fan either.
It's okay.
Emily called it a rant, so I put it in the title when I posted the video earlier this week. I was like, okay.
Emily and I stand together. We are two, but we are mighty.
It wasn't exactly what I was going for, but all right, if that's how it came across, I'll live with it.
All right.
But encourage people to catch the replay if they miss it. It's on podcast too, so if you just want the audio version, you can go to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or Spotify. Yeah.
So how's your week been? Before we just jump into business, how are things going?
Business. Okay. Continuing to process the loss of my friends and taking it one day at a time. Some days feel better than others. Some days feel very fragile. Mm-hmm. Life feels fragile. If I were to be honest, I'm feeling my age a little bit. I'm feeling like I don't know where I'm going in my future, but just keep trying to push ahead and process the losses, process my life. I don't know if I'm having a midlife crisis, but it's a lot of contemplation about that. But had a good couple of conversations this week that you and I filmed related to critical race theory and continuing that conversation. Mm-hmm. Got one of those posted. Got some good feedback about that.
Yes. Should Christians
denounce whiteness?
Yes. I was just trying to give you that intro so you didn't forget to say the title.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you.
You know, I try to help where I can.
Yeah.
Yes. And we just have other things happening here, people. Don't worry. My week was...
Yes, how was your week?
You know, I knew you were going to ask, so I just thought I'd cut you off at the pass. My week was good. I think my week was good. I had a really interesting conversation with someone at work about how critical race theory is kind of infiltrating her school campus.
Well, I think that's really interesting because there was a college student.
She's a college student.
And she's at a Christian college that's in kind of the more charismatic stream of Christianity. And let's talk about that for a minute. Like, what was sort of her impression of what's happening on campus?
That it's very violent and everyone is at odds. Professors have been fired and she's just trying to navigate her way through it and understand.
She's white.
Yes.
Probably like 19, 20, 21, somewhere in there.
Yeah, but I think very biblically grounded.
Okay.
And has a really good head on her shoulders. Extremely intelligent.
She's wanting to go into social work, I assume.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. But it was very eye-opening to hear her conversations around this issue. And like me not being on a college campus, I don't know the ins and outs of when it's there and how it's showing up and things like that. And she was able to give me some insight into exactly how it's showing up and how it pits not just, whites against blacks, but whites against whites and blacks against blacks. And, not everyone who you would think should or should not hold a critical race theory view is participating as such.
So, but you also had some other conversations with some, I don't know if we call them peers or colleagues, other people who work in the realm of social work. And one of them was a person of color, and they were a little stunned by your questions about critical race theory, that you weren't kind of 100% on board with that.
Yes. And that opened up a whole nother conversation, and they were able to ask questions and I think challenged a little bit of their views, which is good. Like if I can just get you thinking about what you're thinking about, I think then that's a win. I'm not saying, you need to come on and believe as I believe, even though I think that'd be great. I just think that it's good to question your questions. I also had another conversation with a woman at work, and she's an older Caucasian lady, and she completely is just in the mindset that all whites are oppressive and the oppressor, and she's ready to give her reparations. And I was like, wow, okay. And so, I shared my thoughts, and we walked away civil and just in two different camps. And that's okay. Like, the goal isn't to have argument or huge disagreements, but to listen and to hear, what other people think and where they're coming from. And I can take that and, be responsible and respectful with that.
Well, I think it's a good illustration of being in those conversations. And we're really hoping that the videos that we're doing will help to equip people to be in their own conversations, in their sphere of influence, to equip themselves, even if they think this doesn't necessarily pertain to them directly. It's out there. It's in the culture. If you're working in a college, it's there. You might just not notice it yet or not be in the right conversations with the right people. But this is really one of the dominant features of the worldview of our time. And it's coming into the church for sure. So good. That's good. We want to encourage people to check out our series on that. And we're going to be soon announcing that we're going to be doing a public thing together.
Yes. So excited about that. You and I.
Co-presentation on critical race theory at a public venue.
Yep.
So hopefully this will be something that people will be interested in finding out about. And if you want Monique to come to your church, your Bible study, your school, she'll I'm just going to put that out there.
Well, there's that.
Let people know.
Yeah, let people know.
We'll
come out and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah.
I like how you said Monique and I said Will.
Yeah.
There's that. But always open, always looking for resources and looking to be a resource.
That's right.
So, okay, today's show.
Let's do it.
All right. I am going to share a bit of my journey, let people into a bit of my world, who I am. And I'm a little nervous. I'll put that out there.
Monique's a very private person.
That is true.
She does not like people knowing things.
Not at all.
And I didn't ask her about doing this show. This was totally her idea.
We had a conversation when we first started
a long time ago. Yeah. That eventually we would do this.
Yeah. And so I think the time is now. Yeah. It's good. I can tell you that I am a little on edge about it, but it'll be okay.
But we do want to raise awareness. Really, it's we want people to get to know Monique better because I'm super excited about that. But I also think it's important. The bigger thing is raising awareness about a very important issue that doesn't get enough conversation in the church.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about mission field
PTSD.
Yes. So there's not a lot out there on this topic. So
regarding to missionaries. Yeah, I think
Yes.
there's quite a bit of information out there regarding PTSD
PTSD.
in general. And I would also say that regarding like individual experiences, the experiences can be so varied that while there is a lot of information, there's still not a lot of information because mine could look so different
Right.
than someone else's.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then later in the show, we're going to address our friend Juad's question. I did a live stream a couple weeks ago on like a Tuesday night. It was an odd night. And Juad had asked a question and I meant to answer it in the live stream and it just completely slipped my mind. And Juad is our friend. He's a Muslim viewer that likes to catch our show periodically.
Yeah. He's
And-
actually been watching like since the beginning.
Yeah, like the very first
Yeah.
week, I think he found us. And so I didn't want him to feel like I was ghosting him. It just completely slipped my mind. And about 45 minutes before we went on the air, I was like, oh my gosh, we gotta do Juad's question. So we're going to try to tackle that today on the question of how can a loving God send people to hell who have never heard of him? So hopefully he'll catch the live show or the rebroadcast so we can do that.
And of course, we have the tweet of
the week.
Oh, so good.
So extra.
Yes. And it'll be something fun. We'll talk about that a bit.
Yeah.
And
a little something from the Babylon Bee.
Yeah. And then any questions that you have
Yeah,
or
join
thoughts,
us.
join us, share, and we'll tackle those as well.
Yeah, and be sure to hit the share button if you're watching us. Help us to get the word out about the show and the kinds of conversations we're having here on all the things. Hit the share button. That really helps us out in helping new people find us. So,
Yes.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about mission field PTSD. So let's start. People have been getting to know you the last several months as my friend and our co-host on all the things, but maybe we should start with setting the context from your life of what were you doing before you went to be a missionary in South Africa?
So before I went to be a missionary, I was just a regular person. I lived in the States, lived in Southern California, was working in nonprofit, spent time working in homelessness for 10 years, maybe a little bit more than 10 years, created programs for teens, internships, did a lot of case management, did some program management, but it's all been in social work,
Okay.
nonprofit, did a lot of group homework, like as soon as I got out of college. And yeah, from there, just kind of went into case management and then program management and spent a lot of time in program management.
So you had people. One of the things I find interesting about your story is you had a very successful career in nonprofits and in the realm of social work. I mean, you weren't just a case manager; you were basically at the top levels of large nonprofits, going to board meetings, doing presentations. You were doing big things in that realm.
And I'm going to just offer up this side of it too. Like, we can't just say just case management because case managers
Sure.
work harder than like me and, going to a board meeting or doing program management and things
It's a big
like that.
job.
Case management is, oh my gosh, it is that's why I was like, I need to get out.
I can't do
Because
this
I can't
anymore.
do this anymore. This here is a lot.
Yeah.
And especially when you look at case management for like the county and working with kids in foster care and things like that, it is beyond taxing. Case managers work tirelessly and with tons of hours. So yes, on to your point, I was creating programs and going to board meetings and all of those things that let me wear pencil skirts and high heels, which I absolutely love. That's a little running joke that we have because
Yeah.
I always talk about my pencil skirts and my high heels. So yeah, I was doing that. And
Then what
And
shifted?
it was fine.
What shifted for you? Like, I think I'm going to quit my big job where I earn a lot of money, and I'm going to give away most of my earthly possessions and move to Africa.
So in 2010, I was invited to go on a missions trip to South Africa. I had never been out of the country. I had no desire to leave the country. My mission field was here. I've always wanted to just work in inner cities around America. And I was invited and I was like, no. And then I really believed that the Lord told me this was for me. I was supposed to go. And I did. And it kind of just changed everything for me. I fell in love with the country and the people. I went twice that year and really saw an opening to do a bit of different work. And so I went every year up until the year that I moved in 2014.
So first you were doing kind of short-term missions.
Short-term missions, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, yeah.
Okay, and then you decided, I'm going to actually move there.
It was cheaper than continuing to buy plane tickets, I thought. I was
okay.
like, I'm just going to, instead of spending, this much money so many times to come back and forth, why don't I just move there? And
so what was the work that you went there to do?
I went there for originally it was supposed to be a year, and I wanted to do a bit of dance therapy. I was going to get kids to open up based on movement, and that was all I was going to do. I had planned to do some budgeting and Zumba with women, get them in not better health, but working in their body and things like that.
You have a dance background.
I
should
do.
Probably tell people. Yeah.
And then some women, when they are working with things like HIV, AIDS, become heavy around their midsection and become self-conscious about that. And so we talked about just like weight overall. And even if you don't have HIV, AIDS, a lot of the like health structures in South Africa just weren't promoting a lifestyle of like healthy eating or a lot of exercise. And so I went and did some budgeting and life skills classes. But I did that with adults, and with kids, it was dance therapy. And it was supposed to be for a year, and then I was coming home.
But then that kind of shifted.
That turned into a different year.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, like there's so much good work happening. I can see being here another year. And so I came home at Christmas, which was scheduled, and I renewed my visa. And I had been praying about it the whole time and didn't feel like I was supposed to stop, like I needed to stop. Quite the opposite. I felt like I was really hearing the Lord say, go, and this is okay.
So then what did the work become? What did it shift into for you after the dance therapy?
Well, so some of that had to shift because of the violence. We're doing an after school program. And in that, because of the gang violence, it was unsafe for kids to walk home. And so we stopped doing that. The principal heard of my background in social work and asked if I would consider doing some counseling with some of their kids. And it was like 2-3 kids. And I was like, sure, not a problem. And that just exploded. And at the end, it exploded into 5 schools and trainings and just all kind of things that I had never envisioned or really imagined when I went over there, but it was all good work.
So the area that you were working in, can you tell us what area you were in?
Yeah, so I was in an area called the Cape Flats.
Okay.
It is just, I think, east of Cape Town. I'm poor with directions. Let me just put that out there.
What's life like?
Life in the Cape Flats is extremely impoverished. It's a lot of drugs, a lot of gang violence, poverty, a lot of kids raising kids, grandparents raising kids because mom and dad are on drugs. It's a lot, like more than
a lot of death
everywhere.
Yeah.
A lot more than I thought I would ever see. One of the things with the dance group, because we did do it in a group, was that the kids would speak about things that they all had in common. So this person got shot last night in the street and everyone saw it. So we're going to talk about that. But no one is talking about the things that really happened behind their doors. So when we went into more individualized counseling, then we were able to really hear the stories.
So you're there in Cape Flats, you start working in schools, you start seeing a need that these kids are living through incredibly difficult lives. Many of them have experienced death of close family members, often very violently.
Parents, family members, siblings, people that they, just are friends with who accidentally get shot in front of them. Yeah.
So you start doing counseling with them, which turns into sort of a whole program of
all on its own. Yeah.
The counseling the children, but also training teachers to recognize when their students
have experienced trauma. Some of the symptoms of childhood PTSD. Talking to parents about their kids and how they can work with their kids on things like grounding, or just, hey, how can I connect you with an organization that would be a resource for you in your PTSD? There was a lot of work being done holistically within everyone who was surrounding the child. So the teacher, the grandparents, the parent.
And you were really kind of spearheading all of that.
Yes. So I partnered with an organization, or the organization that I was with partnered with an organization, and that organization received interns every year, twice a year, from one of the local universities here. And they were sociology and psychology interns. And so we began using them to help with the counseling, to help with group work and things like that. We also received interns from the South African College of Applied Psychology, Cornerstone, which are two of the bigger psychology schools down in South Africa. We had volunteers that would come in who were also trained in psychology and, wanting to give back and things like that. So we had a very well-running machine.
I want people to understand like how incredibly resourceful and bright you are, because you're basically building a program in a foreign country and figuring out, all right, what resources can I harness so that I can build an entire team of people? And you're creating like this small army of people to help minister and with children, a resource that hadn't been there previously to that. And then you start not only helping kids, but also training teachers, training parents. It really is an amazing thing that you did down there. And so I just have such admiration for all that you accomplished with so little and being incredibly resourceful with it.
It was definitely an awesome time. And the teachers are definitely awesome. Like when I think about them now, I can't even imagine what it took for them to be able to pull up within themselves the ability now to have to identify this child is working, with trauma and is trying to learn with trauma and the barriers that happen when a child is traumatized. There also is so much, there are so many students per class. You have to have such a high level, it's like 40 or 50 students in a class before they will even open up another classroom.
Wow.
And the majority of those students have experienced some form of trauma. So then the teachers experience like vicarious trauma or secondary trauma.
Yeah.
And now they're dealing with their own trauma. Many of them live
because hearing the stories of the violence that the children come to school and tell them has its own traumatic effects on the teachers.
Kids just trying to stab other kids in class.
Wow.
And a lot of the teachers living within the neighborhood of the school. It was just trauma on trauma on trauma.
And I think that what's one of your theories is that at least this section of South Africa, possibly South Africa as a country, it experiences almost like mass level trauma.
Yeah,
because it is such a violent culture that people live in kind of low level, constant anxiety about anticipatory violence that could happen to them at any time.
Yes.
And people don't, I think, know too much about the details of what happens in South Africa, but just some of the stories you've told me, like there's a law that women don't have to stop at red lights at night because it's too dangerous. Something might happen.
That law, I never read that book part of the law, like when I was going for my driver's license, but all my friends obey that law. So it's
sort of an unwritten law.
Yes.
Or that people would leave wire or bricks on the road to make cars break down so they could rob people.
Yeah, I just read.
Don't go out at night.
No. 2 days ago, my Facebook memory was me talking, or I made a post on Facebook warning people that on the R300, which was a freeway, going to the N2, which was another freeway, there was a guy on the overpass, like little bridge, and he had a gun and he was pointing his gun, and be careful. Be careful if you're driving that way. And I think a couple weeks ago, it was, I had a picture because I was stopped by a cow. I'm not even lying. While I was on this one road, Baden-Powell, and there was a guy with bricks trying to throw bricks into car windows. So yeah, like
it's what the violence there is just widespread and frequent and
normative. Like
normative. Yeah. It's very normalized. So, do you have any pictures? Do we have pictures of any of
we might
Monique's work there?
I think I might have sent.
It's got three graphics. But you didn't send me any pictures.
Oh, I did. I don't. Maybe they didn't come through. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Email or
Messenger.
Okay. We won't have any pictures. All right.
I know.
I was looking forward to some pictures.
But you know what? Maybe we'll post some pictures when we post the show notes.
That'll be good.
Yeah, because I have tons of pictures.
Yeah.
Tons of pictures with me with littles.
Yeah. And Monique really has some like superpowers when it comes to children. She just has such a unique way of communicating with them. So
they're much more fun than adults. Let's just be honest.
So everything's going pretty good. You live in South Africa about 4.5 years. Mm-hmm. Then about 14, 15 months ago, you come home for a vacation that you think is going to be about 10 days. 6 days, something.
Yeah, a little more than maybe 6, somewhere between 6 and 10.
Yeah.
But I wasn't supposed to be here for 2 weeks, no.
Yeah. And you ended up not going back.
Yes, there was that one time when I didn't go back. So I came back, and a lot of things had happened in between this time. And so I'll give... It's okay if I just give.
You can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. If
there were some
too much, then we'll stop.
There were some things that had happened. Someone breaking into our house, and I lived with friends at this time, and someone broke in and was standing in my bedroom, and thankfully, like I woke up and I addressed them, and they ran off. What else happened?
Someone tried to break into your car.
Someone tried to accost me in my car, and like kicking my car, and now punching the car, and I was able to actually drive away. That happened as I was pulling into the school where we were based at.
Someone tried to attack you in Zambia.
Well, there's that. I went jogging, and these guys ran after me a bit. I think that was a bit. That was a little stressful.
That was rough. And someone else tried to break into your apartment.
When I lived on my own, some guys climbed up my balcony and tried to take the sliding glass door off you can actually shake it and it'll come off the track, and then you'll have access in. So there was that, and I was attacked by a dog.
That was right before you came home.
Yeah. So there were those things.
So here you are, a trauma therapist living in...
I don't know that I would call myself a trauma therapist, but I do know quite a bit about trauma.
Okay. So you were working in trauma, helping kids, equipping teachers. Then you yourself starts experiencing highly traumatic events.
Yes.
As a result of living there.
Yes.
Yeah.
The symptoms that I honestly probably just didn't want to see. Like my sleeping problems and things like that, kind of not sporadic eating. I felt like I ate pretty well, but I was also trying to lose weight at that time too. But yeah, I noticed now that I'm here on this side of it, I can say, oh yeah, that was this.
It was starting.
I have a couple friends who said, but didn't you remember this? You know, we talked about this. That is also, you know, part of it. And so it did start before I got here. I think when I got here, though, I was able to relax and not have to be so hyper vigilant.
Yeah. So maybe we could go to the graphic of some of the symptoms. We have this graphic of common PTSD symptoms. And you're kind of reflecting back now of thinking, oh, yeah, I was struggling with some of these things. Flashbacks, I think, is one that you've really experienced. Hypervigilance is a big one.
Flashbacks now, yes. When I was there, no. Nightmares, yes. Hypervigilance, yes. Insomnia, not a lot of
avoidance,
anger and rage. Avoidance, yes. Isolation, yes.
That was a big issue.
Poor memory.
Yeah.
When I was there and while I've been here, yes.
And one of the other things that's not on the list, and this is sort of indicative of PTSD, is not everything's on the list, but one of the things you really struggled with was reading. Mm-hmm. You'd always been a very active reader. You like to be educated and constantly being reading books about therapy and trauma and trying to learn more. And you were struggling, but you didn't really realize it because you just kind of made a life shift to doing audiobooks.
Yeah, and I was just like, well, I don't really know what's happening, and I don't even know that I questioned it so much. I just found another way to get around
to handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Audible became a friend, and there was that, and that they had a lot of good books on Audible, and so yeah.
So you come home, and
I come home and I come to your house.
I know.
Yes, I do.
We don't really know each other very well at this point.
We don't need to put it all out there. No. I came home, and you met me at the airport.
Yeah,
and
I came to pick you up.
Yes, and
we had only met on Zoom.
We had only met on Zoom. We had been like Facebook friends, and then you offered to pick me up at the airport. The airport is a good hour and like 45 minutes from here. And so I was like, oh my gosh, yes, thank you very much. Because normally I would like Uber from the airport. But you picked me up and you brought me back to your house. And I remember I had these, I figured I was going to come home like in December, not in June, or like, sorry, not December, in April of 2018. I thought I was coming home.
2019.
When did I come home? 2018?
Yeah.
Yeah. So April of 2019 is when I planned to come home. So I had a ton of suitcases. So I packed.
Because you were starting to bring your stuff.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So I packed some stuff and literally had 2 huge suitcases that I was taking.
One of them was just shoes.
Yes, that is true. One of them was just shoes that I was going to take and leave at my brother's house. And I brought with me like my carry-on luggage. My carry-on luggage was the only luggage that I had. And I was going to be here for a couple of days. And then, you know what? You tell this story a lot better than I do because I really have no recollection of what happened. But short story is that I kind of lost my words. And there is a word for when you lose your words. And I always forget this word, but it starts with an A. And it like there's a psychological word for losing your words. Yes. Is it aphasia?
Aphasia, yeah.
But lost them and really... I think before I lost my words, kind of started retelling all of the traumatic stories that had happened in South Africa,
so
basically.
On this end of it, what happened was Monique came on a Sunday, and my friend and I picked her up from the airport. And
she's my friend too. Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, that's true. And we're all friends. And so brought Monique to the house, introduced her to the family. We went out to dinner. And was just kind of getting to know each other. And then the next day I took her to work with me. And I thought, oh, this will be fun. I'll introduce you to my work friends. And I think you came to a lecture at my work and
about
lunch.
Subjects that I had no idea. I was like, who studies this?
What is
that?
This? I think it was on, it was with my friend Ken Wolgamuth. It was on, like radiometric dating or something. And
I was just like, hey, can I get a date? I don't even know.
not that kind of dating.
Okay.
So yeah, and then so she was supposed to leave on Tuesday, and then I remember like it didn't work out, and so she stayed an extra night, and I thought, no problem. And then you went to your brother's.
Yeah.
And you stayed there for a few days, and you had your family activities that you had come to the States for.
Yes.
Because your nephew was graduating. And so then we were at a dinner party the following
A
weekend.
dinner party that I planned.
That you planned.
And hosted, yes.
That you said, hey, everyone, I'm in town. Meet me on this day and time at this restaurant if you want to come see me. And then you posted it to 1,000 of your closest friends. And so we're at this dinner party with all these people that are all there to see Monique. And I start noticing, like, she's acting really strange and going to the bathroom a lot and hiding in the bathroom.
I was having panic attacks.
Yeah, and I didn't know what was going on. Someone at the dinner party asked you to tell a story about Africa, and then you just...
Pretty much lost it.
You kind of went away.
Came unglued.
Yeah. And you looked at me and you said, I have to go. And I'm thinking, okay, like, go to the bathroom? Where are we going? And I said, no, I need to leave. And I'm thinking, but all these people are here to see you. And you're like, no, I need to go. I need to go.
And we left.
And we left.
Yes.
And so I just kind of diplomatically made up something and we left. And you came home. And you don't really remember.
No, I don't remember a lot of
this night. And I remember sitting with you in the bedroom, and you just started talking for like an hour straight, telling me all these horrific stories of the children and what they had been through. And I really didn't have an understanding until that moment what the nature of your mission work was. It sounded very pretty on social media, but
because no one wants to say, hey, I just talked to this one boy who's in second grade about why his mom killed his dad. Like, people don't want to fund that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let's just be real. I need to figure out a way to make this as appealing as possible. And also, I don't want to traumatize other people either.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think there's a lot of pieces that go into what you put on social media. For me, I wanted to protect my kids as much as possible. So I wasn't trying to exploit them in a way by saying, oh, this is this child's story, that is that child's story.
Because many of the people that were connected to you on social media were also donors.
Yeah.
They were giving to your ministry.
Yeah.
And so it was all very tricky. And so I remember I was sitting on the floor and you were laying in the bed and you were just crying hysterically and you're just telling me story after story after story after story.
And by this time, you're like, what the heck?
Yeah, I was like, what is happening? And I didn't honestly completely know what was happening. Mm-hmm. And all I kept thinking was, she'll sleep it off. It'll be okay. And after a couple of hours of that, you finally went to sleep. And then the next morning, I woke up and I just felt really strongly that the Lord had said, don't let Monique get on the plane. And I'm thinking, I don't have any control over that. I barely know this woman. And I remember talking to you. We were supposed to go. We had planned from the beginning to have you go to church with me on that Sunday. I think it was the 10th of June. And you were supposed to go to church with me, meet all my church friends. And then we were going to drop you off somewhere after church. And then you were going to go on the next leg of your journey.
Yeah.
Eventually, you were supposed to go to Paris and then Zambia.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I don't know how to have this conversation. And I was like, are you sure you feel up to going? And you're like, oh, yeah, I feel fine. Everything's fine. I'm okay. Everything's good. And I'm thinking, does she remember last night? Does she not remember last night? I don't know what to do. And you just seemed kind of off, but I didn't know you terribly well at that point. So I wasn't really sure.
But I mean, I got dropped off at my friend's.
Yeah,
And
you
very long story short, I ended up having a conversation with the therapist that's associated with our organization. And in that conversation, she's the one who said, I really think you're struggling with PTSD. And she had a conversation with our organization's founder, and they together said, hey, this isn't going, like, you going back won't work. But I was also at that point on board and saying, hey, I don't think that I want to go back. The last thing that I failed to mention was that there was a death threat 10 days before.
I didn't know if you wanted to say that.
Yeah, there was a death threat 10 days before I came home. And so I think that was the straw that just really put things over for me. The idea that one of my kids and their families would have plans to, take my life.
And it would be somewhat easy to identify you because you were an American, and
only my accent, really.
Yeah.
I think people always say you can always spot an American when you're overseas. And when I first got there, that was pretty true. Like, I always had my water bottle. I was always dressing with my name brands and carrying my Coach bag. And, but I mean, I got over that. And it wouldn't necessarily be that way. Like, people would come up to me when I was at work and, like, start to speak Afrikaans, not knowing that I was American. So...
But what happened is right before you flew here, I started noticing these behaviors because you would be in your apartment and you were up at like all hours of the night, and it didn't seem like you were leaving your apartment. And I was like, I wonder if she's okay, if what's happening. And
well, after the threat, I didn't leave a lot, because one of the things about
PTSD,
or not even about PTSD, but about Cape Town, in the area where I was working in the flats, is that when they make a threat, like, it's real. And so I began to become extremely hypervigilant, which is a symptom of PTSD. And so I wasn't leaving my house. I was super, like, aware and alert about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, there was a question.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know.
Okay, let's see. S. Brooks says, Monique, did you go as a missionary under an organization? Was there prep available for you before you went? You're sharing such great inside perspective. Okay, so here's how I went. I had an idea, and I was like, I think that these kids could really use some dance therapy. I just think it would be fun. Like, they love to dance, and they are extremely talented. They are extremely, I think, just kind and outgoing. And so offering that in conjunction with the therapeutic part, I thought could possibly be helpful in just their, in like coping or like school and all of that. And so I approached the founder of an organization, and I'm not going to go into, the organization and all of that, with a pilot project.
So you're an entrepreneur. You had an idea.
I guess so. I had an idea. They are not a mission sending organization. They are a leadership organization. They do tons of work around the States and around the world in leadership.
So you pitched an idea.
I pitched an idea.
They helped you get it funded. They helped you raise support.
Yes.
And you were the first missionary.
I was the first missionary. I was the only one on the ground in South Africa. And while I was there, yes, tons of support teams came over, but no, as far as like the prep in going, I don't necessarily know that I nor anyone truly within the organization knew all of what needed to happen or should have happened. Yeah. And so I can't say, oh, the organization failed me on this point. I can say that I didn't know. I didn't research that. I had a really well-meaning and good idea. And
they were standing behind you.
They stood behind me and stood behind me well and sent me.
And they're continuing to stand behind Monique in
her all kind of ways.
In her recovery and healing process that has been very helpful. And so fast forward a bit, you came to stay with us because you realized, I'm in trouble. I can't go back to Africa. Something's wrong. You had this person tell you, I think you have PTSD, but what that was really going to look like for you, even though you had taught other people about PTSD, recognizing it in yourself was a bit of a journey.
Yeah.
To see what that was. And
Well, one of the things I think that I'm learning in all of this is, yes, recognizing in myself what it is, but then also recognizing that I'm not alone. Like that mission field PTSD is real, that there are issues regarding trauma and the occurrences of trauma and how high those occurrences are that to me people in the church aren't talking about. Now, because I didn't go through a mission sending organization, I'm not exactly sure what that training looks like, but I know that when I see churches send people, I always wonder, hey, I wonder if they know, or especially now on this side, I wonder if they know what they're going to see. I wonder if they know when you get there and you live, it's going to look so much different than you going on a
short
2-week
term.
mission trip, even being there for a month. Like, that's great and everything, but now you're there. It's just you and your Google Maps. How do you make it to the store? And what do you do when the men of a different culture are unlike the men who are here in the States? And so you're on the train and they grope you, or, people call you out of your name or say things to you because
Yeah.
you are American. I'm not sure how often all of that gets conveyed to missionaries in their mission sending. And I think it really should be. Like, this is not a situation for the weak at heart.
Yeah, and I think we're very well meaning in wanting to send missionaries overseas, but sometimes we don't have the conversation about, all right, here's some other things you have to know. It's not all just wonderful ministry or even what you see on social media.
Mm-hmm.
There's some very hard things that can happen. In fact, my daughter Emily wrote a story for her college magazine about a little bit about your story and another friend that she has. And so Emily just happens to have two people in her life that have mission field PTSD. Her friend Natalie, who was her small group leader for a couple years at church, Emily wrote this story, and I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes that's available. And Emily won an award for this story, actually, because it was just, I think it's such an unusual topic and highlighting what happened to you and to Natalie. Mm-hmm. Natalie, I think, she go to India? Yeah, and experienced trauma overseas as well. And, we need to highlight this. I think more study needs to be done. There's been a couple of smaller studies that we could find through Google about mission field PTSD, but there's not a lot of conversation and not a lot of awareness about it.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the reasons why we're doing this show. And if you have questions for Monique, go ahead and type them in the chat box. And we will be fielding those. So I think I've already asked you most of. Is there?
There's a question on Facebook.
Oh, Mary Beth. Oh, now my friend Mary Beth. Let's see if I can find it. They go overseas a lot. They have a mission organization that she and her husband run to help support missionaries. And she goes to Africa quite a lot. And so my friend Mary Beth says that Monique's stories are true of her friends in South Africa as well. There's no stopping at signs at night. Yeah.
I think it's one
A little earlier. All right. I'm looking.
Jackie says that as a full-time foreign missionary, I'm looking forward to hearing from Monique as well.
Oh,
Jackie,
good.
You're a full-time foreign missionary. That's awesome. Where are you serving?
Yeah, Mary's watching from Spokane. That's awesome. Our friend Rachel Shockey
Hey, Rachel.
shared it. Thank you, Rachel. Our friend Cynthia's watching. I don't see the question from Mary Beth, though. Maybe.
I'm seeing. Wait, maybe I don't.
If you see it, can you read it to us?
Third from the bottom.
I don't see.
Can you just read it to us?
Yeah, just read it.
Thank you.
Just go on mic and.
Thank you so much for your willingness to go and serve in love. And ministry would come to minister to just you, to serve you by refreshing and encouraging you as you serve in the trenches. Would that have been helpful? Did you have any lifelines in place to keep your heart safe and healthy?
I did. So yes, I lifelines to help keep my heart healthy. I always had access to our founder. I always had access to her partners here. I had friends in South Africa. I do have friends in South Africa. My very, very good friends are still in like relationships that I formed in South
You
Africa.
have really formed a family there.
yes.
Yeah, and became attached and kind of adopted by
Yes.
a South African family.
So yes, there were lifelines in place, and true to trauma, even in situations where you do have lifelines in place, trauma still happens, and the traumatic occurrence can still create PTSD. And so I don't know that lifelines would have necessarily helped to avoid a diagnosis of PTSD, especially experiencing so many traumatic events in such a short span. I lived on my own. I drove on my own. I was not isolated in that. I became, I believe, more isolated after the death threat, but always at my friend's house, my friend, and friends at my house and things like that. Like you said, part of a family. And so, short of, I'm not really sure what
else could have
been done.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely feel like I had those things in place. Regular calls and check-ins with people in the States.
Yeah.
And tons of very intimate connection and relationship in South Africa with the family that I'm a part of. And so, I just think that like in a 4.5 year span, I had two break-ins, chased, someone trying to attack me in my car, and a dog bite.
Yeah, and a death threat.
And a death threat. So there you go. And that wasn't by any doing or anything happening because I was alone.
Yeah.
It's like you drive to work on your own.
Yeah.
So, but that is a very good question. I can see how, if you aren't attached to very intimate relationships or lifelines, that it would be easier to go into isolation or depression and things like that.
So you've come a long ways.
Yep.
When you first came, the days were long and it was very challenging. You've made,
there was a ton of guilt.
Yeah, I think there was so much guilt about leaving and not being able to go back, not being able to say goodbye to the children. That was a big repeated theme for several months after you were here. A lot of sleep problems, hypervigilance.
Yeah. And just not even, feeling like even if the opportunity was there for me to go back. And I know that the organization and I talked about me going back or having someone go with me to go back, and feeling so scared that something would happen because of what I had seen there and, witnessed firsthand.
And quite frankly,
I wouldn't have been able to travel anyway.
You couldn't. You were just too fragile.
Yeah.
For the first 6 months. I mean, it just was really hard. Actually, I should say more like 9 months. The fragility got better, but there was no way you were going to engage in international travel at that point, like in July of last year.
No, I remember getting off the plane on June 3rd and having a panic attack in the airport.
Yeah.
And being like, what the heck is wrong with me?
Yeah.
But my luggage was late. It was the last one off the plane, and I had my luggage stolen so many times that I was like, not again. And then there it was. Yeah. But no, you're right. Like, traveling just wasn't on the table for me at that point.
So you've come a long ways. Some things are still a work in progress. Just a few of the symptoms that you still experience are.
I think my sleep is still, it's a lot better. But nightmares are definitely still a problem.
But in the beginning, you would have like 5 nightmares a night, and now you might have a couple a week.
Yeah.
And so that's the progress that you've made.
And like being completely vulnerable. Like I took a nap today and had a nightmare and was completely thrown off. And here you are, now asking, are you sure we're going to be able to do the show tonight? So those are the real day-to-day things that people with PTSD struggle with. And I don't know that, I mean, nightmares happen for me. They don't happen for everyone, but
that's what it looks like for you.
Yeah.
Another thing you experience is you don't have good connection between your brain and your stomach or your hunger receptors.
There is a word for it. And I am losing what that word is. But yeah, a lot of times, just when you first experience trauma, a lot of your own self-awareness and it's not self-awareness, it's actually something else, but it's where your sleep can become off, how you eat, and how the response of like hunger is in your body. You just can lose your appetite, and your regulatory, being self-regulated and self-regulation kind of goes off. So you'll notice, I normally get up every, night to go to the bathroom, or, I go to the bathroom first thing as soon as I wake up. But the regulatory systems are kind of just a little off there. But there's a lot, what people don't understand about PTSD is that it's not just emotional. It's not just, my emotions that are at play. It's there's actual physical things happening in your brain. In your middle brain, there's a lot that's happening. Your amygdala is what controls, or it's like the storehouse of emotion. And your limbic system, which is what holds your amygdala, and I believe it's your hippocampus, your frontal cortex, all of that, like there's swelling and there's changes in structure and all of that. So there is more to it than I am just having a nightmare, or I don't want to be around people, or I am not really feeling hungry, or my, when I sleep,
I don't know
off.
when I'm supposed to go to bed. Yeah.
There's more happening, and that is actually what kind of causes a lot of these things, because when I am flooded with a memory, my body is now responding as if it is now currently happening to me. That current happening feeling then triggers my more like the older part of my brain, or what some would call like the reptilian part of your brain, or the brain stem, and that would send me into fight or flight, because it isn't able to, it's only getting signals, and the signal is, this is happening now because of how the middle brain is responding to the memory. Yeah, so it's a lot of response and signals and things firing. And now I'm in panic mode. My fight or flight or freeze is here. And so
things can be very triggering.
It can be very triggering. Yeah. There are things that triggers that I don't even know I have, and something happens and I'm like, oh my gosh, here I am in a full panic mode. Or I can just be having a flashback. My body can literally just be having a memory. And even in that memory, I am now flooded because my body isn't yet at the place of being able to say, oh, this is a memory. This isn't actually happening. Brainstem, you really don't need to produce all of this extra energy and, now having sweaty palms and a heart racing and things like that. You can remain calm because we know that this is just a memory.
Yeah. So, because I think what's important for people to understand is it's not just an emotional, psychological problem. It's like
no, it's physiological.
Physical things are happening in your brain. I remember when you first came, you telling me, my brain, part of my brain is swollen, and I was like, oh, okay. And
there are a lot of things that happen. It
helps to understand. And so if people have other people in their life that say they have PTSD, they need to understand it's the flashbacks, the nightmares, the hypervigilance. Those are just the symptoms, but there's the physiological things that are happening in their brain, and then that triggers the rest of their body. And it's a very complicated situation.
It's very complicated, and a lot of times people have no control, or in 99.9% of the times, people have no control over what's happening. And that can also be frustrating, though, for the people who are not inside of their skin. Is there a question?
Yeah.
Your experience and testimony are going to bring help and freedom to so many people. Do you feel like your nephew's graduation was perfect timing to catch this before it got worse? Yes, I really do. I believe that coming home for his graduation was no accident. I believe it was actually God's providence and provision to me, for me.
And then coming to stay here, basically, you know, you and I are close friends, but I'm also sort of your caretaker of sorts. Not so much anymore, but in the beginning. Having to do a lot to help, you know, you navigate that really hard space the first 3 or 4 months of you just feeling overwhelmed. And I wonder, you know, how I'm going to make it. Me just sort of being there every day and saying, you know, somehow, some way we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
And that became then the foundation for friendship. And it really is a pretty remarkable story of how the Lord brought us together. And I still have to remind you about eating and sleeping, but
there's that. Sometimes I'm not sleepy. That's our running joke. I'm not sleepy. But yeah, I think
you've come so far. I want people to know, like, you're starting to take a college class this fall. That's a big step for you and shows how far you've come. And you're working part-time. Yeah. And I
remember when I started going to therapy, the therapist said, you know, you shouldn't think working. That you would work for a year to 18 months.
Yeah.
And so came home in June. I started working in January. So, you know, that's great. I am taking a college class. I want to go for my master's.
She wants to start grad school.
Yes, I'm doing some prereqs, and that's awesome. But I think more than anything, the idea that there is hope for people who struggle with PTSD, that this doesn't have to be a lifelong sentence, but it does require support and encouragement and love, you know, and stability from people who are outside of your PTSD person's body.
Yeah.
In understanding that there are things to say, things not to say, things that are completely helpful, and things that even in your best intent are crap and not helpful. Let's just be honest. You know, like this.
Like what are some of the things that are not helpful to say to someone with PTSD? Well, I know one that is helpful. Is you needed hope.
Yeah, I needed a ton of hope.
Like every day we had a ritual in the beginning of me telling you, like, it's going to be okay. It won't always be like this. You in the beginning would be like, is this going to be a good day or a bad day? I would say it's going to be a day, and it's going to have good moments
and bad moments. Yeah, or not so good moments.
Yeah, and we'll whatever it is, we'll get through it together. And giving hope was just a huge thing for you in the beginning.
Yeah. Now, when I look at it, I think dismissive comments that aren't curious, comments that aren't.
Those are the non-helpful things.
Those are non-helpful. Because a lot of times, for me anyway, I don't know what's happening in my body, or what's happening in my brain, and so to say like, well, get over it, that isn't helpful, because I don't know what I'm getting over. 2, I don't even really know what the trigger is.
Stop thinking of yourself as a victim.
Yes. Well, you're not even there anymore. Why are you, continuing to think about this?
Yeah. Don't dwell on it.
Yeah. Those kind of things.
Because what people don't understand is your brain doesn't know the difference between being in Africa and being here.
When those memories come,
it just kind of all collapses
all
together.
Now, right as if it's happening again. Yeah. But a ton of stability, a ton of love, a ton of just acceptance. And that doesn't mean that there aren't boundaries. Just because you accept and you love, doesn't mean that you have to accept if PTSD is causing violence or causing abuse and things like that. I do want to make that clear. But yeah, so that's a bit of
there is
my
hope.
journey.
It can get better, but it does take time. You've been going to therapy. Mm-hmm. It took us a bit to find a therapist who knew enough about trauma to really help you.
Yeah.
So we want to encourage people that if you have to try different therapists,
don't give up.
Don't give up. That's okay. They don't all know about trauma, even if they tell you they do.
Yeah. Don't be afraid of the different modalities that they use. Try it all. Hey, just, and see what sticks for you. if you are struggling with this. Honesty in where you are is always important, and finding a space where you can be honest is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is good. I hope this helps some people. We've been talking for a while and been some good interaction, but it's been a long road, but I'm so encouraged about how far you've come and just what God's done to heal you. We shouldn't minimize the supernatural component
definitely
of your journey, that your recovery has been definitely, the Lord has been in that we've seen great pushes forward in key moments where the Lord, did things to just come in and heal you more and get you further down the road.
Yeah. And I think even, my therapist is surprised by how quick and how far, and that's like his work.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. I am done. I'm just going to put that out there. If you have questions, go ahead and ask. But
well, thanks for sharing, because this took a lot of courage, and people should know that it was very courageous of wanting to talk about this. I wasn't sure you'd be ready to have this conversation anytime soon, but
it's a conversation maybe we'll come back to at some point.
Parts of it, but
yeah, I think this was helpful for me.
Yeah, after spilling my guts about women in ministry a few weeks ago, I figured it was your turn.
There's that. Any more questions on?
Yeah. So
let's see what's going on. What's going on?
People can just happy now.
So, let's see. Esprick says, Krista, do you think that your own testimony of being free from bipolar disorder helped you in understanding and being compassionate with PTSD with Monique? So I'm going to answer that question, actually.
Okay.
Yes. The answer is a resounding yes. There was so much that she tells me and explains to me, but also a way that she can be with me and sit with me in things that I honestly, in my heart, feel like it would have been impossible had she not walked this journey. And I will let you answer too. But for me, it's been one of the most reassuring things in this journey is that I've been able to kind of have like a textbook into mental health that is a firsthand textbook and not such a technical textbook in the idea of like, this is what PTSD is. This is what your brain is. Like she says, no, you need to sit down. We don't do anything on this day because yesterday was a rough day. And so those are the things like they're like chapters in my life and in this story that have really helped ground me and actually propel me into places where I don't think I would be without some of that firsthand knowledge. Anyway, go ahead and say what you got to say.
That's very sweet. I think that the Lord brought us together at a very unique moment. There's been a lot of, it's been very, very gratifying to watch your progress. But to be honest, in the beginning, there was a lot of uncertainty for me and just feeling like I'm taking a stand for hope and I'm taking a stand for healing. I really hope this works. Because I didn't know, I didn't know what the outcome was gonna be. I think for the first 6 months, we kind of had a ritual every day. One of our rituals, because rituals seem to help Monique, like provide some stability. One of our rituals was, to pray every night, to ask the Lord for help with sleep. The sleep, we started seeing some good fruit of the sleep improving, little by little, and just making declarations for Monique of like, you're going to be healed, and making declarations of who she is in the Lord. And those were just things that I had done that I found helpful. And I thought, well, maybe this will help you as well. And trying to find a good therapist, going with you on all the initial appointments to kind of interview these people, because you couldn't really talk very well.
Not only could I not talk very well, but my trust level people, let's just say. And so being able to have you there with me, like on those initial appointments, I was able to say, but I don't like this about her. But I don't like that about her. But what about this? And that question. And then you also ask questions that I didn't think to ask. And together we were able to land on the therapist that I'm currently seeing and say, hey, okay, so there are all these good things and all of these good things. And the negative, questionable things are extremely minimal. Why don't you try this again? Yeah. As opposed to some where I was like, nope, not going.
I guess for me, because of my own journey, I knew there was hope and I knew that there was a way out. And I kind of could think, well, this helped me. Maybe this will help you. And I would be willing to try some things. Mm-hmm. And I think that watching your slow and steady progress, but also the acceptance of our family. And I couldn't have done this alone. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have done this without the rest of the family opening up to you. It would never have worked if the rest of the people in the family, and it was hard. It was hard because they didn't know her, and then she just was here, and there was a lot of hard moments.
And I was weird, and then my room is at the top of the stairs. And whenever Bob would walk by, like if he would talk and I would sleep, I'd scream. Remember that? Do you remember that, Bob? Yeah, because I was like, someone is in the house. Oh, God. And then I would scream. And then everybody would be like, what the heck? Yes, this was my life. Just thought I'd let people in. Yeah. Oh, look. Let's see what's on. Sweet Sunshine. I love that name. Just hopping on now. Sounds like a fantastic conversation and will rewatch. Blessings to you both.
Oh,
Blessings to you as well. Thank you very much. Please rewatch. It's good. Or at least I think it's good. I hope it's good. I don't know. Is it good? Somebody let me know.
My friend Sherry. She's a Biola friend.
Yay, Biola. She says, thank you both for your vulnerability and sharing your experiences. Raw honesty is so helpful and so refreshing in this world of image-conscious social media fakery. Fakery is a word, and I like that word. Yes. Yeah. Nobody has time for fakery. That's foolishness. No fakery. Down with the fakery.
Well, those first days, this was hard. And there was, some of my friends thought I lost my mind. Yeah. And
some of your friends still think you lost your mind.
Yeah,
that's okay.
They still think I lost my mind. But maybe they'll watch this video and kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and understand what I was up to. But it's good. I'm just so grateful to the Lord. All the credit really just goes to the Lord. It's I think me and the family just sort of showed up for you, but it's really just the Lord who has navigated this whole thing. And I look forward to all the good that you're going to do. And as you continue to walk into healing. And thanks. I hope you guys are enjoying getting to know Monique. I think she's just an amazing treasure.
Was there a question on Facebook?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I don't want to miss anyone.
I know.
Because being missed is just wrong.
Oh, yeah, we don't want to overlook anyone. I think we're okay.
Okay.
Bob's kind of helping me, too, with the comments. Because Facebook sometimes hides the comments from me. All right. So we're done with me. All right. Let's talk about something completely different. It's already 7:15.
Oh, wow. The tweet of the week.
Yeah, Juad, we're sorry. We'll save your question because it's going to take me too long. We're going to be here until 8 o'clock. So,
no.
All right.
So now it's time for...
Yes, do it, Pops. I mean...
Oh, wait.
What is this?
What is happening?
It's the tweet of the week. Hey!
Okay, that's hilarious.
This is our family.
Yes, this is us. This is us. Yes. Okay, so there was that one time when we had a puppet run across the street
out in front of our house.
That's great. That's hilarious. And it is time for the tweet of the week. This is the time where you find a tweet throughout the week that you think is worthy of discussion.
Or something.
Yeah,
All right, so let's flash it up.
Oh, there you go.
All right, let's flash the tweet up there. All right, there it is. Babylon B. Couples who occasionally glance up from electronic devices to acknowledge each other's presence are happiest.
That's true. I think I'm not a couple, so I don't know. I don't know.
I thought what was funny about this is if do we have the actual text?
Yes, we do.
Okay. A new study out by Brown University, and I'm sure this is all fake, found that couples, the Babylon Bee, for those who don't know, is a satire.
Yes.
Is a satire. So don't freak out. Who occasionally glance up from their phones or tablets in order to acknowledge each other's presence have the happiest relationships. While many partners are too absorbed in whatever they're reading on their iPhone to look up once in a while as though they're aware that someone else is in the room with them, it appears those brief glances are what makes a relationship really tick. The thing about the Babylon Bee, I guess they're having all kind of problems right now because Snopes, which is this fact-checking website, actually fact-checked the Babylon Bee. I don't know if they just didn't know they were a satire, then they were reporting them as fake news, and it's a satire, people. You might not think it's good.
Calm your jets.
You might not think it's good satire, but it is satire. But what's funny about satire is finding the reality in it, you know, of like, oh, they're actually making an observation about something that's true. Anyways, this harkened me back to our show that we did a few months ago with my friend Arlene Pelicane about connection and social media. And so I just want to take advantage of that and encourage people to go back and check that show out in case they missed it. It was a really good conversation.
Yeah.
So
just the dangers of having too much social media in your life and what you're missing out on and what your kids are missing out on.
And being intentional about connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah.
Apparently, because your relationship will suffer if you don't. And we don't want that. All right.
So be sure to. Oh.
What? I'm not sure what's going on.
He was checking his phone.
Oh. Well, don't do that. All right.
So
guys, yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we got.
We're done. Yes.
Yeah. So check out the show notes. And if you want to get links, or we'll maybe put some pictures on there from
I have
Monique's mission.
pictures. I'll actually put my Instagram handle on there. S Brooks asked me for it, and so yes, I'll make sure that you connect that. And also, you can follow me on Twitter at The Real Monique D. Share our show. Share it with your friends if you think this information is useful. Even if you don't, people. No. No, share it. And then tell us what you think. All right. Wow, that was very different from the fire graphic last week. Well, there's that. Yes, because that fire graphic was a little extra. But we definitely thank Bob and Abby and Emily for all of their hard work into making all of this work well. Because all we have to do is talk.
And we do that anyways.
We do that anyway. Everything else is not our business. Not our lane. We don't get into that lane.
That's right.
All right. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play.
Yes.
And
so if people want the audio version, it's great for commuting, cooking dinner, cleaning house.
Yes.
And they can catch the show. I have so many people say, well, I don't want to sit in front of my computer and watch YouTube. No problem. That's why we have the podcast there.
Listen to us while you drive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And share us with a friend. Really, I know we keep talking about that, but that's the best way to help support the show right now, help us grow, is through the shares. And we really need that. And also, we love to hear your feedback. We love hearing your comments.
Always. And you can do that by going to the Theology Mom website, theologymom / all the things.
Yes.
You can email us at attlivestream@gmail.com. You can send us a message on Facebook. Theology Mom.
Yeah. All those places. So
we are there.
We love you guys. We really appreciate you tuning into our conversations here and all of the silliness and the seriousness and trying to follow what we're doing here and commenting about things that our culture is wrestling with from a distinctly Christian worldview. We don't claim to have all the answers, but we just do want to be in the conversation and to think about what God has to say about things. We live in some challenging times, but we still think that God is extremely relevant to what's happening. And we're hoping to spark some discussions for you. And we hope that this is equipping and training you to have better conversations with the people in your life. And also check out our videos on critical race theory. So.
Yes. And with that, we are out. Good night.
There's nothing left.